This Mexican lagoon is a nursery for grey whales.
This is wonderful.
I joined them here at the start of one of the world's greatest migrations. Every spring, grey whales swim over 5,000 miles from Baja California to Alaska. I followed them by land, sea and air. Great view from up here. The whales and I travelled past some of the world's most spectacular landscapes, each with unique creatures of their own. En route, I've met whale watchers.
Oh boy, another new whale.
And worshippers. Now the Greys and I are reaching the end of our extraordinary journey. In this episode, I'll be in freezing Arctic waters. Hear the story of the most famous grey whales in history. I'll meet flamboyant seabirds.
They look so cute, but these are voracious hunters.
And beasts that seem prehistoric. I'll join whale hunters and take part in their customs. It's June, and I'm in Alaska, where most of the grey whales are. I'm on the Pribilof Islands. This is St. Paul. The Pribilofs are in the Bering Sea, about 250 miles from the Alaskan coast. St. Paul is the largest of these 4 isolated islands. The whale travellers pass close to this island, so if I'm lucky, I'll be able to see 1 or 2 of them. There's no network of whale watchers here, so I have to hope for a chance encounter. While I'm waiting for a grey whale to pass by, there's plenty of other things to see here. This is one of the most productive marine ecosystems on Earth. Over 3/4 of all the US seabirds come here to spend the summer. That's over 30 million birds. Just over here is one of my favourites. In fact, I think everyone has a soft spot for these birds. Early sailors used to call them sea parrots. This is a horned puffin. It only has the fleshy horn above each eye during the breeding season. It will lose them and the colourful sheath on its bill when nesting is over. These colourful birds are members of the auk family. There's a second species of puffin on St. Paul. There's one of them sleeping just behind me. This is a tufted puffin. It's waking up. This one is at least 5 years old. It shows its age by 3 grooves on the bill. Snow is unusual this late in the year. A puffin vents its frustration. The snowbank blocks off their nesting territory and doesn't make for easy walking. Despite the unseasonal snow, the puffins are sliding into position for nesting. Some puffin pairs have nest sites where the snow has already melted, and they're becoming amorous. Puffins mate for life. When they reunite at the nest site after a winter spent out at sea, they greet each other by rubbing their bills together. Billing is an affectionate ritual that strengthens the bonds between mates. Pairs will soon make or search out a home. If there's enough soil, they'll dig a burrow with their bills and lay their single egg at the end of that. In rocky areas like this, they'll find a cosy crevice to lay their egg.
Puffins aren't the only auks that breed here. There's 3 species of auklet too. Crested auklets are the size of starlings. They dwarf least auklets, which are barely bigger than a sparrow.
Here's the third kind, the parakeet auklet. In breeding plumage, these birds look immaculate. A white plume of feathers coming from their eye and a bright orange bill, just like a parakeet's.
I'm scanning the sea, desperate to have reason to shout, "There she blows!" But there's no sign of passing grey whales. But I do come across some cliff-top wanderers.
Look at these here. There's not just seabirds on St. Paul Island. Reindeer just ahead of me. There's about 500 living here. They were introduced from Russia to provide meat for the local people. See some small calves in amongst the herd. They're a couple of months old. They were born in late spring. There's males too. They're already growing antlers in preparation for the rutting season, which will be in a few months' time. The reindeer have noticed me. I've never seen this before. They're behaving a bit like muskox, forming a defensive circle with the young in the middle of it, so they're protected by the adults on the outside.
Not that I'd have any chance of catching one, even if I wanted to. The calves can outrun a human within hours of being born.
It's quite a hot day today, so the herd are cooling off on one of the last remaining patches of snow.
These are the descendants of just 25 Russian reindeer released on the island in 1911. The reindeer head for the hills, but I'm sticking tight to the seabird cliffs. This is the best vantage point for spotting whales, and there's always the chance of seeing something special on the rocky crags.
In the Pribilof Islands, even the cormorants aren't commonplace. These are red-faced cormorants. The vivid colours around the beak are eye-popping. The cormorants breed earlier than most of the other seabirds here. I can see eggs in the nest. They'll lay 3 or 4 of them.
So far, I've not done any whale watching, but coming up soon, something watches me. There's battles on the beach, and what's that out to sea? On the final leg of their northward voyage, over 20,000 grey whales are swimming through the Bering Sea. In June, some of them pass St. Paul, the largest of the Pribilof Islands. I hope to spot one of the travellers. I've been wandering the high cliffs, keeping my eyes peeled for greys coming up to breathe, or a glimpse of their backs breaking the surface, like this shape ahead of me.
My mind's starting to play tricks on me. Saw a shape moving out of the corner of my eye. Thought it was a whale, but it's a big flock of harlequin ducks.
All handsome drakes.
Really lovely to see though. They're all diving in unison.
With the greys proving so elusive, I decide to catch up with some other marine mammals.
The Pribilof Islands are famous for these animals, northern fur seals. There's around 500,000 here, half the world's population.
They come ashore between June and September.
This is a bachelor group of non-breeding males. The big bulls are over there in the breeding rookeries, waiting for the females to arrive.
The bulls that control the best areas on the beach for giving birth will have the greatest chance of mating with females.
In the past, northern fur seals were hunted for their skins. Between 1868 and 1911, 60,000 were taken from the Bering Sea. The pelts were so valuable, when the US bought Alaska from Russia in 1868 for some $7 million, they made the money back in just a few years from harvesting these seals in the Pribilof Islands.
Nearly extinct by the end of the 19th century, they were internationally protected in 1911. The population bounced back. Today, there's over 1 million in Alaska, Russia and Canada.
There's Arctic foxes running through the colony.
They're checking out the fur seal rookeries because they'll soon provide many nutritious meals. They're rather curious about an unusual creature at the top of the beach.
There's an Arctic fox peeking out from behind the fur seal.
The little carnivores won't find much food on single-sex beaches.
Just like the bulls, the Arctic foxes are waiting for the female fur seals to arrive. When they have their babies, the foxes will feast on the afterbirths.
Afterbirths are packed with protein and vitamins.
From this angle, it looks like it's chasing the seal, but of course they're much too big and powerful for an Arctic fox to kill.
Their only chance of seal meat is if there's a weak and unattended pup, or if there's a dead adult to scavenge. I leave the Arctic foxes to their waiting game. I've watched and waited on St. Paul long enough. Perhaps most of the migrating grey whales have already passed by here and are further north ahead of me.
I've had a brilliant time on St. Paul, but I haven't spotted any grey whales passing the island.
I'm going to try my luck on another island in the Bering Sea, St. Lawrence, which lies 120 miles off the Alaskan coast. This is a really unusual sight in mid-June that hasn't been seen for many years. The ice has stayed much longer than normal because of unusually strong winds pushing south from the Arctic. This is the home of the Yupik people. I'll need their specialist knowledge to find the grey whales. I just hope with all this ice around, we can still get to them. I'm pretty sure I'll get a helping hand from the locals. Wildlife documentaries are popular here. Some of the Yupiks have even watched mine.
Hi. Hey, hi. How you doing?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Everything seems promising. A couple of the locals have seen grey whales offshore recently. To enlist help, I head to Savunga, one of only 2 settlements on the island. I found out where the Thule brothers live. They're experts at navigating small boats through these icy waters. Liliana is the great niece of Cedric Thule. He and his brother Orville will take me on a voyage through the ice.
Orville, Cedric,
Hi there.
do you think you can show me a grey whale?
Yeah, I think we can show you a very well.
Good.
In summer, there's perpetual daylight here, so we set off at 9 p.m. Dense sea fog is the only worry on the horizon. It will be dangerous if it rolls in when we're away from the coast. But for now, we're bathed in sunshine.
mirror calm, unbelievably beautiful ice scape. Perfect conditions for seeing grey whales when they breed.
This view really hammers home how far the whales have swum.
It's hard to believe the difference between these freezing waters and the warm lagoons in Mexico where they've travelled from.
Amphipods, shrimp-like creatures, are abundant on the sea floor here, so the whales can fatten up. There's many small fish too, which attract fishing parties.
Wherever you look, there's seabirds streaming past the ice. Big flocks of Brunix guillemots.
Guillemots, called murres in the US, nest on nearby cliffs. The Thule brothers suggest we stop here and scan for whales.
Can I come and have a look with you, Cedric?
Yes, sir. Nigel.
Great. Thanks, Cedric. It's a good vantage point, isn't it, here?
We see squadrons of crested auklets, but none of the telltale bushy blows of greys taking a breath.
No sign of any whales?
No sign, Nigel. Might as well go a little further northwest.
There's a fog bank on the horizon. I hope we find the whales soon. It's dangerous to be in amongst the ice in thick fog, and we're a long way from home, 5 miles out and 40 miles from Savunga.
Hey, there's whales up ahead.
There they are. They've come up from their feeding dive. You can see the blows just above the ice.
The pair are sieving out the amphipods from mouthfuls of seafloor sediment.
It's a mother and calf.
This is a wonderful sight.
To see them moving through this sea of ice. Tail there, they're diving again, feeding. The calf just blew. Of course, on its long journey, it's developed a big layer of blubber to cope with these freezing waters.
It keeps warm with almost 25 centimetres of blubber.
This is fabulous. It's just after midnight. Grey whales amongst the ice.
The fog didn't roll in as we feared, so I can relish this moment with a mother who's protected and guided her calf for over 4,000 miles.
These whales are away, weaving through the pack ice. They're obviously heading further north. Maybe I'll catch up with them right at the top of Alaska.
I'll be back on the tail of the greys soon. But before joining them at the end of their ocean odyssey, there's a wondrous wildlife spectacle on St. Lawrence I just can't miss. It's very close to the village of Savunga.
The vast colony of seabirds you find near the village are pint-sized cousins of puffins. They live in amongst the rocks of this scree slope. These charming birds are pretty confiding, so if I sit still and quietly, they should carry on with their daily business. These charming birds are least auklets. They're barely bigger than a sparrow. They look so cute, but these are voracious hunters. They take nearly their own body weight in prey every single day. They don't feed on fish,
They feed on plankton. Floating shrimp-like creatures are a real favourite of theirs. In a few weeks, the female least storklets will lay a single egg in a crevice in the rocks. When the babies hatch, they'll have healthy appetites too. Parents make 6 to 8 feeding visits every day to feed their babies.
Every trip, they bring back around 500 tiny prey items in their throat pouches.
They're perched on every rock, it seems. They nest in vast colonies of up to 1 million birds. These are the most abundant seabirds in the Pacific. Their worldwide population is 9 million. On their feeding trips, these little birds fly far out to sea. I wonder if any of them have spotted the grey whales
I've been following. It's time to leave the Lee Storklets to continue my journey with the grey whales. I'm heading north to the land of the polar bear. It's late June and grey whales are nearing the end of their epic migration, the longest made by any mammal. Mothers and calves left the breeding lagoons in Mexico around 4 months ago. They're now off the coast of Alaska. The greys are strung out in the Bering Sea en route to the Arctic Ocean. I'll join them there after a stopover in Nome, a city on the west coast of Alaska. Famous for gold deposits in the surrounding hills, people have been seeking their fortune in this frontier town from the 1800s to the present day. It's hard to see greys from here. They don't come close to the coast. But before my plane leaves, I'm going in search of animals that live a little way off the beaten track. At the beginning of the 20th century, a railroad construction project ground to a halt when investment dried up. The rusting rolling stock bears witness to a scheme that went off the rails 100 years ago.
The last train to nowhere is one of Nome's most famous landmarks. The boggy tundra, where it's come to rest, is home to these red-necked phalaropes. Other than this short breeding season on the tundra, red-necked phalaropes spend most of their year far out to sea, where they'll follow feeding grey whales, picking up any morsels of food they leave behind. Compared to most birds, in phalaropes the roles of the sexes are reversed. This is a female in front of me. She's much more brightly coloured than the male. The females will mate with many males, laying a clutch of eggs for each of them. Then they'll fly south, leaving dad to incubate the eggs and look after the babies.
The beautiful tundra around the town is famous for some massive mammals with record-breaking hair.
I've got a few hours before my flight. That's time enough to see a creature that looks really prehistoric. They live very close to Nome, often right next to the road.
It doesn't take me long to find them.
Here's the creatures I've been looking for. Up there on the brow of the hill, muskox. There's a couple of bulls there. Between the horns, they've got this massive boss of bone. That protects their brains when they're fighting. I can hear movement on the other side. I think there's a bigger herd of them. Muskox are real Arctic specialists. No other hoofed animal goes further north. They were introduced here to Alaska from Russia. They're not native to this part of the country.
Now some 200 muskox can be found within 5 miles of Nome.
These animals live in herds of 30 or so. It's a matriarchal society. The herd is led by a female. The newborn calf there.
Baby muskox don't become independent until their 2nd year, so they rely on the adults to keep them well guarded.
These animals are famous for forming into a defensive circle when they're protecting their young.
They have another claim to fame too. At 60 centimetres, muskox have the longest hair in the animal kingdom. They look a little bit scruffy when they shed their winter coats.
Pretty hot here by Alaska standards, which is why they've come close to the water.
The air temperature is over 20 degrees centigrade.
This was well worth stopping off in Nome for. I really didn't believe I'd be walking with a herd of muskox.
It's not long now till my flight. Time to go to the airport. The Arctic Ocean will be journey's end for the grey whales and I. My destination is Barrow, the most northerly town in the United States, 320 miles inside the Arctic Circle. It's a whaling community. The native Inupiat still take a small quota of bowhead whales. In the past, others hunted here. These old ships are part of the Nantucket whaling fleet. Bowhead whales and other Arctic creatures are the backbone of this community. It's awe-inspiring that grey whale calves born just 5 months ago in a warm Mexican lagoon now swim with walrus. These Arctic specialists feed on the seafloor too, sucking up shellfish before hauling back out onto the ice with metre-long tusks. The greys will meet belugas too. You can hear why they're also called sea canaries. At the moment, thick ice blocks access to the open sea, so I've time to search for another polar icon.
There's one Arctic carnivore big enough and powerful enough to hunt belugas and walrus. Sometimes it walks right down the main streets of Barrow. That's dangerous, of course, so the Inuit community have a way of keeping them out of town.
To find out how the locals dissuade polar bears from walking the streets and to see if there are any bears around, I travel along an icy spit of gravel to the north of the town. Russell, a local guide, soon spots something.
Oh, we got a cow here.
I'm going to have a look.
Kawaks are really handsome.
Look at this here, one of the beautiful Arctic birds that Barrow is famous for. A king eider.
This colourful drake will soon fly inland to find a mate on a tundra pool.
This is a great place to scan for polar bears. There's a big pile of bowhead whale bones there. There's chunks of blubber in there too. The people from the town of Barrow move all this to the top of the point. That's to attract the polar bears here rather than have them in town.
The bone pile is irresistible. These predators have such an acute sense of smell, they can locate a seal pup from 20 miles away. So the odour of dead whale is a big draw. In winter, over 80 bears can visit the leftovers. One of them is still hanging around.
A really healthy male. He's obviously been visiting the boneyard. He's got a big chunk of whale flesh. The flock of gulls around the feeding polar bear, they're on the lookout for any scraps that he leaves on the ice. We're so lucky to see a polar bear this late in the year in Barrow. Normally by late June, the sea ice has disappeared and the polar bears have gone with it. This beach leads to the Chukchi Sea. The grey whales are further out in the open water.
All this shore ice makes it hard to get out to them. But we must move in case the bear gets any closer. He hasn't noticed us yet. He stops to rub whale fat off his chin. It was a good idea to leave when we did. He's walking right where I was standing. Back in Barrow, with the ice still thick offshore, I've time to visit the Nullagatuck Festival. It's a celebration of a successful bowhead whale hunt and a chance for the whole community to share in the spoils. This black gloop is mikyak, fermented whale meat. It's a dish the Inupiat people relish from a very young age. Whale meat, any meat for that matter, isn't for me. I've come to hear about the most famous greys in history from Arnold Brower, one of the tribal elders.
Arnold, there were some grey whales trapped near Barrow back in 1988. It made headline news all around the world. You were involved with that.
Yeah, yes.
And how did you help the whales?
I was the supervising the cutting the chainsaw holes in the ice.
You had to make the breathing area bigger for them. Was that the main problem?
Yeah, that was because it was such a small confined area and they were bumping each other to fight for the breathing hole. We enlarged the hole. Tried to make them relax, let them know that help was here.
How long were the whales trapped here?
Close to a month.
What other people were involved in the rescue?
There was the oil industry got involved, the Alaska National Guard was involved, the Navy Rear Admiral was here, the governor was pushing us. I was looking at the news and President Reagan was speaking and he pointed at the camera and said, "By the way, you guys saving the gray whales?"
We're very proud of all of you and what you're doing up there, and I'll let you get on with your rescue mission now. And
my prayers and the nation's prayers are with you guys.
Only 2 of the 3 trapped whales could be saved.
One had got bruised and you can see the bone in the front of it, and it probably died of hypothermia.
2 of them swam back into the Arctic Ocean.
Yeah, with the help of the Russian ships that came, and we crashed in through the thick ice.
So the Russians made a channel to the open water to help the whales?
Yes.
So you think that those grey whales may have swum all the way back to the breeding lagoons in Baja, California?
As far as I know, I think so.
It's a real heartwarming story. Thank you, Arnold.
All right.
Thank you.
The finale of the Nullagatuck Festival is drawing near.
Nullagatuck means blanket toss. If you're wondering why, look at this.
Jumpers can soar 7 metres, 2 stories high. The blanket is in fact seal hide stitched together. The blanket toss originated as a way of spotting whales in the distance. The jumpers often throw sweets into the crowd, delighting the children.
All together!
1, 2, 3!
This can't be that difficult, can it? I can't just be a spectator, can I?
Take it easy on this guy.
Be kind. Be kind to me. I had a try. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was great.
I didn't get the hang of that at all.
I was pathetic in comparison to this lady. Look how high she's going. Two stories.
I'm reaching the end of my travels with grey whales. I just need to get through that ice for one final voyage in search of them. I'm in the frozen landscape of the far north, close to the Alaskan town of Barrow. The vast area of open sea beyond this ice is the final destination of the grey whales I've been following. I'm heading out with local expert Frederick for one last meeting with them. We can't wait any longer for the ice to clear. We're going to have to make a pathway through.
Our route to the open ocean is blocked, so Frederick's put the anchor in here. He's hoping to pull this ice chunk away so we can get through.
Slowly but surely, easy does it.
Well done, Frederick. There's a perfect channel all the way through now.
Hooray! We've made it. We're only the second boat to get past the ice this season.
Well done, Frederick. Brilliantly done. It was a tricky job, but Frederick got us through the ice. We're now heading out into the Chukchi Sea, where thousands of grey whales spend their summer.
The Chukchi Sea is adjacent to the Beaufort Sea. They're both part of the vast Arctic Ocean. The Chukchi Sea extends between Russia and Alaska, so some of the grey whales will summer in Russian waters.
There's a blow! Over there! There's another blow. What a precious moment this is for me. I first saw grey whales spouting in a small boat like this on a subtropical lagoon in Mexico, where the grey whales go to have their babies.
This friendly calf was just 5 weeks old.
First contact! Hard to describe what they feel like. Sleek and smooth, a bit like a peeled hard-boiled egg. Lovely mottled markings on the skin. Whoa, look at Mum spy hopping here. Grey whales can see pretty well in air as well as underwater. She was having a good look at us then.
Calves suckle over 200 litres of milk every day, so they quickly put on weight. They need to be fit and strong for their marathon swim.
They're leaving the safety of the nursery lagoon, heading north out into the Pacific.
Leaving San Ignacio Lagoon, I travelled alongside the whales up the Baja Peninsula to the US border. Passing the world's largest cacti, I drove 500 miles from desert sunsets to the Stars and Stripes. For the whales and I, LA was a real contrast to the tranquil Baja coast. Greys are the people's whale.
Oh, boy, another new whale.
They migrate close to the coast.
And we're just 45 minutes drive from downtown LA.
That's right, yeah.
Fantastic.
Over 1,000 miles into our journey, I travelled in sight of the whales along the Pacific Coast Highway to Monterey Bay. The calves face a deadly adversary here. Hunters lie in wait.
Unmistakable orcas or killer whales.
Calves can be killed if they're separated from their mother. But most calf-cow pairs sneak past the orcas. Continuing steadily north, the whales and I reached a familiar landmark. After the Golden Gate, the whales voyage along the wild coast of the Pacific Northwest. In Oregon, the travellers are welcomed by the Kalooty tribe. They worship the whales, presenting them with a symbolic gift of salmon.
The whole tribe are watching the young men give the offering to the whale.
After 6 weeks and 2,000 miles, we reach Canadian waters, where I rendezvous with the whales at Vancouver Island.
There's a friendly. Haven't been sprayed since Baja, California. Whale made a big swell. Look at them here, coming right behind the boat.
The travellers feast on herring spawn here.
The whales are turning on their side, slurping up the eggs.
The Greys and I headed north to Alaska and the Bering Sea. Before the final leg of the journey, we reunited near St. Lawrence Island.
There they are. To see them moving through this sea of ice.
But why make this long and arduous journey at all? Because the Arctic seabed seethes with amphipods, shrimp-like creatures. The Greys sift them from the seafloor all summer long, putting on a staggering 10 tons. In October, the sea freezes, forcing the whales south once again. On the return journey, the bond between recently weaned calves and their mothers weakens, and they separate before reaching Mexico. The Greys make this round trip every year. In their lifetime of 50 years or so, they'll swim a distance that's equivalent to going to the moon and back.
For most of their migration, they travel within sight of the coast. So if you get the chance, go to see them for yourselves.